We are doing another show. Well, not another show.
These ones
episode.
are like not in an order, right?
No, I don't think
We
so.
don't really
We tried
know.
to do that, and I was like, this isn't going to happen because I don't know when the episodes are going to be because we're just kind of doing all
We're
of them.
filming the second season when the first season's coming out, so there's really no guarantee.
So I hope you've watched the first season. If not, you
Got some
should.
catching up to do.
So today is fun because it's season 2, but season 2 has been kind of interview-esque style of the Matters Over Miles podcast. Welcome everybody to the podcast show. But what's cool about today is that we're actually out
Yeah, we're not in Nashville.
doing stuff.
The original intent of this show was that we would actually be on the road
talking
filming
about things
So
over miles.
here we are.
Matters Over Miles.
Matters Over Miles.
Right? Get it? Got
Yes. Good, good.
Aha, makes sense. But today we are in Fontana, California. Yeah, I know, everybody, right?
Everybody knows where that is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
That's so
But
cool.
you're going to know now. And today we have on our show a pastor that we have known for,
5 years, maybe?
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
5 years, yeah.
Wow.
I love that, doing good things. So Pastor David Zamora, he is pastor of Living Way Church out in Fontana, California. And we'll go over how
Yeah.
the heck we know each other. I can't even remember stuff. This is what happens. You start doing ministry with people and then it just melds.
It's
And I'm like, I'm bored going over this story again and
There
again.
you go.
Somehow all the
Gotcha.
lines connect
Yeah.
back to Derek Niner in Calvary Chapel, Las Vegas.
That's who we need to go do an,
We should interview him. That would be awesome.
my
Do you
gosh.
know? Have you ever met him?
Yes, I
You know
met
him? Okay,
Yeah, I met
everybody
him.
knows
I don't
him.
know him, but I met him. Yes.
Yes. He's
Yes.
He's such a papa.
We play at like a lot of Calvary Chapel churches, and so we have all these connections with Calvary Chapels, and it literally is because of Pastor Derek.
It's true. It's the weirdest, coolest, greatest thing ever.
He's like the gatekeeper, and he's
He's the OG.
gotten us
There you go.
just connected
Calvary
to all
Chapel
he's the
pastor for
OG. Yeah.
Totally. So that's one way, that we got to meet Pastor David. But go ahead, Whit. Take
Yeah.
the next.
We're
part
gonna
of the
talk.
show.
You know, like all of these. This season has been kind of about giving you guys like a window into other churches that you would have no other way of. I mean, you're not gonna come out to Fontana, California,
No, if you do, it'll be great. We have people
even
that
if you're
you'll
like
know.
vacationing to California. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure you're not gonna come out to
No.
Fontana. We are.
not.
What is it like? Maybe an hour and a half, like east of LA.
Northeast? Weird? kinda?
Yeah, we're
It's-
about an
We're like almost in the mountains,
yeah,
kind of.
we're an hour out. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour to
Yeah.
get to downtown on a good day.
Exactly.
On a good day.
On a bad
on
day,
a
it's about an
COVID
hour
day.
and a
Yeah.
half. Hour and a half. Yeah, but
Right on.
we're about an hour outside of LA.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk to Pastor David because his story is super cool.
You aren't
And the
ready.
people that come to
It's
this
gonna be
church
good.
are super cool.
Yes.
And like, let me just give you an example. It was my birthday yesterday. So we've been out here since Sunday night. It's Wednesday. We played here Sunday night, led worship for their Sunday night service. We've played at there is a school that is now associated with the church. So we've been able to help out with their chapel services Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
Last night we played at a women's Bible study, and tonight we are playing at the midweek Wednesday service here, which is going to be great. So now it's kind of like we feel definitely like enmeshed in the community. We've been staying with a family in town.
Yeah.
So like we've just, all the vibes, like we've just gotten to know people pretty well like on this trip out, which is really cool because usually we're only here for
One
minute,
night.
and then
yeah, like
we're
a Sunday
gone.
night. We play
Yeah.
a lot. for that. Or Wednesday.
So Pastor David was like, we need to get you guys out and like have you stay here for a while. We're like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. So I didn't tell anybody it was my birthday yesterday because like that's weird, right? To be like, hey, by the way, it's my birthday. Like I'm not expecting anything, but I've had like people have given me gifts, people have like sent me messages. You know, like Pastor David found out yesterday that it was my birthday and he's like, wait a minute, it's your birthday. He like I could see the wheels start like turning in his head like what are we gonna do, like we gotta embarrass you somehow tomorrow because it's your birthday. So I've had multiple groups of people sing to me, just like
so sweet.
very like wonderful community, and they have no reason to like really care about me besides for like that I play music
so
for their
true.
church, like once
Wow.
a year, maybe, and like they've just been like super kind and generous. That's just the kind of culture that is
Yes.
a part of this church. So
Yes.
we're going to let David talk about, first of all, his backstory and like kind of his life up until when he got involved in ministry. So I'll let you just kind of go on that.
Well,
Also,
thanks for having me.
Yeah.
first.
Of course. Before we even start, also, I'm really excited for people to hear your voice because it's so nice.
It is very...
Like Sunday, he was like preaching. I was like, this is going to be so
This
good
guy
on the
can
podcast.
preach for a long time.
Yo, he is
So-
everlasting. He's
It's like
like,
A long-winded
preaches-
preacher.
he
No, not
preaches like
long-winded.
3 services Sunday morning and Sunday night and Wednesday night. And bro goes for like an hour each time.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't even feel like it's an hour.
he's
because I'm
amazing.
just
I
like,
didn't mean
oh.
to interrupt you. I'm just really
No.
excited because people are going to love your voice. So
Oh, wow.
go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, that's good. That's good to know. So, yeah, I have been pastoring here at Living Way Fontana for 13 years.
Wow.
Actually, January will be 13 years of pastoral ministry. So,
Cool.
my youngest son is 18. He was 3 years old when we started the Bible study 15 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And then about 2 years into it, I realized this was becoming a congregation.
Yeah.
So I
Scary.
took a step of faith, became the senior pastor of this great, great church that has just really impacted my life more than I think I've impacted theirs. And so it's an amazing type of church only because, my background, I shouldn't be in this type of setting, and but this is the inner city part of the community of Fontana, and this is an area that I am, acquainted with only because of my background. This is across the street from the church building where we're sitting was the Fontana parole office for over 20 years, and this will
know
go
that.
into my backstory.
We're probably going to learn a lot
Yeah,
about
so that's where I was on parole at, and was a ward of the state for a number of years. And in the state of California, you have CDC numbers. So anybody that's familiar with California and the CDC system, my number was K79941. I was known for that for years.
It's like Les
And,
Miserables.
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy.
24601.
So,
Yes, you're just forever known by your number.
Yes, yeah. So, but for the most part, so my backdrop was the city of Ontario is probably about, a 20-minute drive from here, if that, maybe even less. Right off the, the I-10, which is the famous I-10. So we're right in
Yes.
between the famous I-10 and Route 66, which is 2 blocks away from us here.
didn't know
you
that.
Yep,
See?
Foothill, Route 66.
Learning things.
So I grew up in the city of Ontario, and just kind of got, caught up in a lifestyle there in the inner city, the culture, come from a Hispanic background. My dad's from Mexicali, Mexico. But other than that, we don't really have no other family there. My grandparents brought my father's side of the family here when they were young, so to the city of Ontario. My mom's side of the family, they're Tejanos. We call them Tex-Mex. So they're from Texas. Midland, Odessa
Yeah.
is where my family's from.
Okay.
And so that's like right outside of Hobbs, New Mexico. It's right on the border right there, southwest Texas.
Yeah.
And so for the most part, my family has always been, kind of that Chicano, culture. That's really what we were. And then being so close to LA,
Yeah.
that whole Chicano vibe is something that really influenced our family, especially my generation in my family. So growing up with that mindset, I'm a Chicano, I didn't consider myself Mexican or Mexicano. I felt that was too old school Mexican for me.
Okay.
And so Chicano was more of like, I'm a Mexican American,
Okay.
So for the most part, that was basically how I identified. So I had never identified as Hispanic. I never identified as Mexican.
Okay.
I just identified as Chicano. And
The fact that these things are all
Yeah.
different is like...
and it is, and it is, and it is, so in other words, and then we were never really accepted. Most Mexicanos, they come from Mexico. They're hardworking. They're
Yeah.
here because they want to live the American dream. And then it's guys like us that were born here, but our parents are from another country. And rather than educate ourselves and take advantage of being born in the United States of America, we got involved in the drug scene, the gang scene. We're Chicanos. We prided ourselves on, we don't know perfect Spanish and we don't know perfect English. We know Spanglish, and so everything's about that. It has its own culture, its own vibe, and so the Hispanics or Mexicans didn't care for us. They viewed us as, we squandered away our future, pursuing something that really has no future in it. And it is truth. So a lot of dishonoring our family name because, we chose the streets, the gang life, and that's kind of how it was for me. But I had very good parents. My mom was a Christian woman, took us to church. My grandparents, Baptist, fundamental Baptist, Spanish church, but loved the Lord. And on my dad's side of the family, my dad wasn't a believer at all. And but he had no problem with my mom being in church. They had a lot of problems in their marriage. And a very abusive home that I came out of, very dysfunctional, unbelievably dysfunctional, but a lot of physical, verbal abuse. And so kind of growing up in that environment, you learn to, keep personal things at home, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
And it's easy to try to look for something that you're not getting at home. And that's kind of what kind of opened the door for me to kind of pursue that lifestyle. So my mom's brothers, all of them, got involved in drugs and in gangs, prison. My dad's brothers, all drugs, gangs, in prison.
Okay.
And my cousins, all drugs, gangs, in prison. So for us, the older generation, church-going, hardworking.
Right.
Yeah.
When it came to my uncles, like my mom's, brothers and my dad's brothers, the whole culture of the family changed. And so the women were really good. I mean, they were homemakers. They did really well. It was the guys that prison, drinking, a lot of drinking, drugs, and so on and so forth. The next generation of us, a lot of us appealed to that. I personally did. And for me, it became more of something that I wanted to be involved in. I enjoyed it. It started as young as grade school and just got really influenced in that culture, found acceptance there, found what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of pursued that life. And it wasn't so much that not too long ago, I had an investigator fly from Colorado out here to investigate, a private investigator actually, to interview. And the reason being is because I have a friend, a childhood friend that is facing the death penalty right now, and he's in federal prison in Michigan. He just received 42 years in prison, federal prison, and now they're seeking the death penalty for another crime that he committed while incarcerated, or they're accusing him of committing. So in their mind, they're like, this guy just, we need to give him the death penalty. So he appealed to this PI because he says, you need to go talk to, I know people that didn't live this life all the way, like I know good people. A friend of mine that grew up in the hood, grew up like me, been to prison. He's now a pastor and he's reaching a community. So this investigator flew out. And they sat with me and they were blown away. And
No way.
And the first thing this investigator said was, my job is to make sure that your friend doesn't get the death penalty. I don't feel he deserves it. This is a real person, I says, yeah. She started off with, well, explain to me when you guys joined the gang. And I stopped her. I said, that's the biggest mistake to make in assuming we joined a gang. We didn't join a gang. It's a brotherhood. It's a family. I've never looked at like I was a gang member.
Yeah.
Society says I was.
Yeah.
But this was a brotherhood. So, for us to grow up in the neighborhood, this is all we knew.
Yeah.
And so granted that, there's a lot of crime and bad things that happen, but for the most part, we needed each other. We looked out for each other. For me growing up in this, it wasn't like I joined something. It was the fact that my family grew up in this. I grew up in this.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that I was in what I was into until I was like 18 years old. And I realized, man, this is real.
Yeah.
But what comes with that? You run the streets, you do what they call gang banging, you go out there and you get into it with guys from other neighborhoods and all that stuff that comes with it. I mean, whatever you see on the movies, I don't need to explain. It's real, it's reality, it's life. But my biggest thing was the drug scene. I started using drugs at the age of 9. And I used till I was 21 years old. And heroin was my drug of choice. So, I started shooting up. I was about 13 years old. I started smoking methamphetamine. I was about 11. And, I was just a really bad drug addict. That's what it was, just a drug scene. And started selling dope and doing all that and, just to support my habit. So all of my crimes were drug related until the last one that, firearms were used, and I was facing a pretty lengthy sentence. But by the grace of God, I was acquitted on 4 counts of attempted murder. And,
oh my gosh.
And still had to go to prison for, the firearm and the drugs and the things that I was involved in. But, going to the juvenile system, the county jail, the state prison, you feel like you arrive, I never felt like they would say, oh, you're going to end up in prison. I'm like, I don't care. I get to see my friends that have been there for years, So for us, it was like a family reunion,
great,
you know
we
what
get
I mean?
to hang
So,
out.
But whatever, man.
But
Oh my gosh.
so it's kind of like, in this sense, you got to kind of see where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Like I have an uncle, I have my mom's little brother. He's, serving 35 years to life. He's been in there since 95. He did about almost 20 years before that. Oh my gosh. And so he should be getting parole or up for parole 2023. So we're really excited about that. I have a brother who, 2 friends of mine, my mom raised, we're brothers. And my brother, Drew, he's doing 167 years. He's 45 years old. And he did 13 years before that and was only out 2 months and stuff. And so this is common in our family. This is, so, when people come to us and they're like, oh, my son's going to get life. We're like, big deal, man. My family's been talking like that for years. It's
right.
like, but what's interesting is the power of God. I was just in Rosarito speaking at a church planting conference. They asked me to do a workshop on planting living way churches.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking at this conference, and Rosarito is right by Tijuana. I'll actually be there this Sunday speaking at a church. But what's interesting is they deport everybody. You see, so a lot of my friends that I grew up with,
Whoa.
when we commit crimes, they'd get arrested and they deport them.
Whoa.
So I'm sitting here speaking at this conference, and this guy looks at me and he walks up to me and he says, hey, I want to talk to you, man. So we start talking, and he says, where are you from? And, when they ask you that, they're like asking you, like, what hood are you from?
Right, right.
And I says, I'm from Ontario, and he's like, yeah, me too. He goes, you look so familiar, man. And then I go, you do too, bro. And I'm looking at him, and the next thing he says my nickname.
Nope.
And I says, yeah. And then he says his, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The last time me and this guy were together, it was 1996. We were in the county jail. He was fighting a double murder. He had 2 murders that he was fighting. I was fighting 4 counts of attempted murder. I was acquitted. I still had to go to prison. He was charged. And as soon as he got out of prison, they sent him to Tijuana. And so he can't come back.
Oh my gosh.
But he's serving the Lord. And he just sent me this video the other day of him teaching on a Wednesday night at his church.
Come on.
Oh, man, that blessed my heart, So I'm going to go spend the weekend with him. I'll be doing the Sunday morning services at his church. And because we're looking to open up a men's home out there to help guys that are, needing to, work through recovery. So that whole background of my life and my story, I was probably about 20 years old when somebody really started telling me about the Lord in prison, and it was the least likeliest person. He's a white dude, man, straight corn-fed, hick.
Corn-fed.
A hick, man, from Tulare County.
Come on.
It's like, David, Jesus loves you. Kind of like that.
And you're like,
he died for your sins.
Like,
no, I'd get
what?
a kick out of it because I'm like, man, this dude reminds me of my mom, man. He's always telling me about the Lord. And, but what's amazing is I'll never forget, I was like facing all this time, right? My mom comes to visit me, and this is what blows my mind about the story all the time. She says, son, you're not going to do life in prison. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, you got me an attorney or something because, we don't have money. And she's like, no, when you were 5 years old, we were at a tent revival and you wanted prayer. So I walked you up there. And the evangelist, when we walked up, said God gave him a word and said, you were going to be a pastor.
Stop it.
And then he said this.
Yeah, I did.
There's going to be a period in his life where it looks like it's not going to happen. But he told my mom, you hold on to the promise of God.
Come on.
He goes, and so that's what she said. And I looked at her and I says, that's it?
That's my ticket
I
out of
told her
jail.
off. I was so upset with her. I don't need Jesus. I don't need your God. I need an attorney, man. I was so angry at her and upset. I was so mean to my mom, back then. But
Dude, your
anyways,
mom's
so that's what she
amazing.
said. And then after I was like, man, this lady's crazy. So, I'm going to trial. I got all this stuff going on, Well, the next thing you know, the public defender, because we didn't have an attorney, pulls me aside and he says, there's going to be some big changes today in the courtroom. He says, I got to talk to you before you go in there. He says, so I got good news and I got bad news. I said, what's the bad news? He says, you're going to prison. I go, yeah, I figured that. He says, what's the good news? He goes, you're being acquitted. And
Wow.
when the whole process of that went through, the first thought that popped in my mind was, what if what my mom said is true?
Whoa.
And what if God is real? So I had that in my mind, and stuff. And so here we are, a couple of years later, and this guy's telling me this stuff, and I'm telling him, he's like, David, that's God. Jesus is speaking to you, calling you, and so I'm just like, I used to get a kick out of this guy. But you know what? At the end of the day, he told me this. He said, I'm not going to tell you about Jesus no more.
Whoa.
And I said, why? And he just says, because you now have to choose, he told me.
I like this guy.
And so then he said, I says, oh man, you're crazy, man. I used to talk way different back then. Man, hey Holmes, you're crazy, Holmes, So anyways, look, so what was so cool about it is that he says, if there's one thing that God can do in your life that would prove that he is God. Because I told him, I go, how do I know you're right? This other group says they're right. This other group, I didn't even know what I was saying. I was just trying to get out of this awkward conversation.
Yeah.
He said, if there's one thing God can do to prove himself to you, what would that be?
Oh my gosh.
So I picked the hardest thing. That six different institutions couldn't help. And I said, this drug addiction. If God can take this addiction, then I'll give him my life. And he says, you would really do that? And I says, yeah. And I says, man, if you took it from me, I'd give you my life. I says, it's impossible. It ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. I love getting loaded. I love getting high. I do what I got to do to do this. And I had so much baggage. I've hurt so many people. I've lied. There's people that hated me still to this day. They don't believe that what I'm doing is real. They think it's all a front. But it's interesting because I'll never forget, he looked at me and he says, well, all you got to do is ask him. And I remember I went back and I'm laying on my bed and I'm thinking, and the conversation just wouldn't leave my mind. And I just said, God, if you're the God of the Bible, if you're the God that this man says you are, if you're the God that my mom says you are, then take this drug addiction from me. And if you do, I'll give you the rest of my life. And if you don't, I don't need you in my life and I'll die a dope fiend. And yeah, I still get a little emotional with that. But
I'm getting emotional too. I'm like,
yeah, it's only by his grace that he set me free. And yeah, that next day I woke up and I've never touched another needle since.
dang.
Yeah.
Come on.
radically delivered. And yeah. So I realized then.
My word.
I realized then,
David.
now I got to be a Christian. What
Now
does
what
that
have
look
I
like?
done?
So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, that story is just so powerful because,
Oh
and
my
that was the
goodness.
radical thing. And I knew right there, okay, so God is real. And my whole entire life has been a lie.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Everything I believed in, everything that I worked so hard for,
Wow.
even the respect in prison and the reputation and everything, it's like this was all a lie.
Yep.
So I come home from prison and it was really hard. I mean, I was still drinking, I was smoking weed, I was going to church. I just felt like, I'm not shooting up no more. I'm not a dope fiend.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this encounter, this demonic encounter. It was pretty radical.
Yeah.
And it's like, I guess that was like the last pitch effort
Yeah,
of
yeah,
God
yeah, yeah.
reaching out and saying, I need to rock his world.
Yes.
To get him to see that this is bigger than him. Because see, my mentality is, I just do whatever I got to do to handle what I got to handle.
Right.
But this situation, I couldn't handle it. And so that's what brought me to faith. And I just said, okay, Lord, you've already done this in my life, and I forsook you. And you're going to take the rest of this away. And I'm tired. So like for a year I struggled, but I was still going to church. And I was about 22 years old when I said, okay. Yeah, I was about 21, 22. And I know because I was still like buying beer with my ID. It's 21, so I was right around 21, going to be 22 years old. And I just remember saying, okay, I'm going to serve God with all my heart. And I did. And I haven't looked back since. I've been in ministry. This church that I was going to, they put me in ministry 2 months after I started attending there. So I've been serving in ministry 2 months after that.
Come on.
Yeah. And here I am today. So
What?
yeah. So it's mind blowing, right?
What?
So
Whatever.
That's insane.
so that's the testimony in the story.
Yes.
We got
How-
like a Cliff Notes version of that. I think the first time that we
Yes.
played here,
Yes. It was, very,
but it wasn't
the whole thing.
wasn't the whole entire.
Yeah. Well, God's good. And how we got here is I've always lived in the city of Fontana. I moved out of Ontario. It was just too hard to try to live there and try to do things right because you run into the fellas. I go to the grocery store. I
Right.
drive down the street. The homies see me, and they're just like, hey, what's up, man? And it's like, hey, what's up? And like you tell them like, I'm going to church. Oh, that's cool, man. Well, come on, come kick it,
Right, right.
And it's like, and I would go. I would go.
Yeah.
And everybody's drinking, everybody's partying, and they're just like happy to see me, and they wouldn't tell me anything about being a Christian, but, it just, I realized that I still wanted that life.
Yeah.
So I had to make a decision. Like, it's going to be a matter of time before I end up back with them
Sure.
and doing what I'm doing. And so, I got my family and I moved out of Ontario and came to Fontana and had been here, ever since. And so it was interesting because, I would report to the parole office here across the street. I always thought this was a Catholic church. And my buddy lived next door to the parking lot here. He used to slang a lot of meth. And slang means sell. He used to sell a lot of methamphetamine.
Thank you for these slight education.
So, yeah, because I start talking like that, everybody's just like, what does slang mean?
I think it's nice. Thank you.
Okay, good. So he used to sell a lot of meth, and I used to go to his house and drink water so I can go and, and drug test for my parole officer. And never thought in my wildest dreams that I would be the pastor of this church.
No.
And so what's interesting was I was working at this warehouse. I'd been there for a number of years. And of all places, it was a medical supply warehouse. So there was like pallets of hypodermic syringes. I'm like, man, you know how much money I can make selling these? Because I was always buying these and, selling them and reusing them and all kinds of stuff. It's just interesting where the Lord puts you. I became a member of management there. And one day I'm working and this guy comes up to me and he's just like, hey, man, we're talking and, he grew up in the same neighborhood. I grew up in the same neighborhood. And then we get to talk. He's like, oh, I remember. Yeah. We talk about the same guys or whatever. And then he says, so what are you up to? I said, I'm serving the Lord. And he's just like, me too. And so we start talking about the word. And then he says, hey, will you come teach me the Bible at my house? I said, sure. And I hadn't been back to my neighborhood in a while. So I went back right in the heart.
Whoa.
In the hood, man. Whoa. We went there in a backyard. I started doing Bible studies. And and so then we were looking for a building in Ontario, and we couldn't really find one. And we were in one, but we knew we needed to like kind of be on our own. And so because I lived here, I met a gentleman who was retiring, who was pastoring here in this church, and the Lord opened up the door for us to be here. And so we came here, and within the first year, that gentleman retired, and pretty much the group of people that were here just kind of left with him, and this kind of just fell in our laps, and we just began to grow here. And then the parole office moved out several years later, and we acquired that building across the street, and now my office is where me and my parole officer used to meet. And so it's just a crazy story, man.
Your ID, like your number, like.
Oh yeah. So and we've been doing ministry here ever since. We opened up a recovery home. We get lifers out of prison.
Yes.
And they serve a year in our program. You guys were here last night with the graduation of one of the guys from the program. So we've been doing that for a while. We're planning to open up now a women's home here pretty soon.
You are nuts.
Yeah. So I met a young lady. Her name is Leti Zepeda, and if you guys can be praying for her, she's my age. There's a movie on my life called The Neighborhood. Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa produced a film. It's a full-length feature film. You can get it on iTunes, but this kind of depicts the stories of like. 4 pastors, we kind of all grew up in the hood, been to prison, and now we're senior pastor of churches.
Yeah.
So this young lady came across this movie, The Neighborhood. She's in Chowchilla Prison in Northern California, serving 51 years to life. Oh my gosh. Okay. And she starts a program in there for women that are, lifers, because in the prison system, you have to work through a program to get time reduced.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's laws here in California that, even though you get life, you can work toward, getting a parole hearing, go before the board, and they'll grant you parole at times after you do like 20 some years, right?
Yeah.
So she created this curriculum on like facing like internal issues, these women, because they've been abused and all this stuff. And the movie, The Neighborhood, addresses a lot of those things, because I talk about being sexually abused, as a young man, and how that changed my whole outlook on life. Because one of the number one things that I thought after this abuse happened to me was, what was so feminine about me that a grown man would want me? So at a 6-7-year-old kid, that's not something you would be thinking,
Right.
So then I set out, well, I got to prove that there's nothing feminine about me. So a lot of my actions, a lot of things that I did was not because I was crazy, because I was proving I'm not a girl, I'm a man, kind of thing. And so it was mind blowing. So I shared that in the film, and this sister said, your story out of all the guys, I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
But your story, everybody doesn't matter how many groups we do, how many new people there are, they're just like, that guy.
No way.
And his story
Come
is just
on.
like, so she wrote to me, and I don't know, I get a lot of letters from, fan mail from prison, but from both, from men prison, women prison, but anyways, I don't write them all back. My secretary and one of the leaders here on staff, they usually do. But this gal, I decide to write back because she actually created a program and invited us in there. It was the first prison that approved me to get in. And because I've not been able to get into the prison, I was validated in the prison system because I was very active in there, gang-wise and prison politics. You kind of shoot yourself in the foot for any type of action when you get out. So anyways, I got approved to go in there, but I couldn't make it. I had to go to speak in Mexico. Of course. Anyways, to make a long story short, she wrote me and saying, we missed you, but she sent me all the material that was given to everybody as if I went. She goes, I just want you to see what we're doing.
Aww.
So then I started, corresponding with her, writing back, and really took the time. And now these women are getting released.
No way.
Yes, they're getting released. And so now another prison, which is only 20 minutes from here,
Come on.
CIW, the women's prison, the warden actually wrote her and said, if you want to transfer down here, we need your program here.
No way.
So this movie, The Neighborhood, it's been mind-blowing to see how God's using it, right? So anyways, she has no family down here, but I told her, listen, if they move you over here, I will commit 2 Saturdays every month. If you're in there for life, I'll be there every 2 Saturdays out of the month. I'll go visit you.
Come on.
And she's like, who would do that? And I just says, your friend. I says, because what you've done with this, there's a need for that. So we're hoping that she transfers, then I can open up the women's home. And when these women are getting released, we can take them in for a year and integrate them back into the community.
Yes.
So she just texted me, email, but it's a text, last night. And she was so excited because she was opening up her legal mail. And she just got her paperwork to petition the parole board for a hearing. So she went in when she was 31 years old. She was married, had 2 kids. She was a social worker.
Oh my gosh.
And she just was at the wrong place at the wrong time, driving a vehicle. Her friends committed a murder, and they got her for first-degree murder.
Wow.
And gave her 51 years to life. So she's 43 now.
Gosh.
And, but, last night I just emailed her back, because it comes on my phone. She has an iPad, and I have the phone, and we can communicate throughout the day via email, but I just told her I'm praying for you. And man, imagine the story. Like, you get out, she wants to do that. She says, I feel like I'm a part of your church, even though I'm like, she was like, I can't wait. She
That's
goes,
awesome.
she said, I'm moving to Fontana, period. I'm
Yes,
from the
she
Valley,
is.
but I'm moving to Fontana. So, but this is the whole dynamic of what our
Yes.
ministry is. I feel the Lord is saying, go where nobody will go.
Yeah.
Minister where nobody will minister. Take the time with those who others won't take their time with, So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
I really, really am. So that's kind of what Living Way is. I mean, it's that style of ministry. It, and then we're planting churches, and I went to India and, planted a church. Now there's 5 Living Ways in India. We got something starting now in Pakistan. I'll be out there as soon as all this COVID stuff lifts.
Yes.
And we got churches all around the area here. And it's amazing because it's just an inner city type of ministry.
Yeah, it is.
And we're just helping people that nobody cares to help. I'm always reminded of that quote by Corrie ten Boom. That's been my favorite quote my entire Christian walk the first time I heard it. And that is, there's no pit too deep that the love of God cannot reach in and save still. I just like, man, that's that's me right there. She was talking about me, man, when she quoted that, So that to me, that's gospel, period.
I can't.
Okay. So she's amazing. But I remember I quoted this at a conference, and some lady, she says, I had never thought I'd see an ex-homeboy quote Corrie ten Boom.
Right? Like, who's Corey ten Boom?
So I got all the homies reading Corrie ten Boom now.
Yes. Dude. Oh my gosh. She's the coolest.
Yeah.
She's the coolest.
So that's our ministry. That's how we ended up here. And so that's all of it in a nutshell. I have 3 kids. I have a 22-year-old son. He'll be 23 in December. His name's Joseph Zamora, and he's in the Army. And he's loving it, every bit of it. And my daughter, Adriana, she's 21, and she works here at the church, at our school, our private school, our academy. She's a teacher.
so beautiful. I love her.
And my youngest son, David, he just graduated high school, and he's 18, and he's now got his first job working at Amazon, So it's like life is great.
Look at you, man. The goodness of God.
Yes.
Oh my
Crazy.
gosh. I
Well,
can't.
I
don't.
feel like we barely need to say anything else.
Like,
but so here's a question that I'm going to
this-
try to word it appropriately so that people don't get angry with me.
Is this your poke the bear moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every one of these episodes has like I just like jab people in the
Yeah,
ribs.
good. Yeah, I'm with it.
Like-
I'm with it. I'm good.
What is
we
Lyle
know you
always
are.
says,
Our pastor, Lyle. What?
man, there's a quote that he says all the time
Roasting?
that you're not always there to comfort the afflicted, you're there to afflict the comfortable.
There you go. There you go.
I feel like that's like my lot in life half the time. Anyway, so one of the things that you said that like really stood out to me was that the church that you started going to put you like in some sort of responsible ministry position like
Right away.
after
Yeah.
you got out, which to me I'm like it's almost like offensive to me because
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people like they feel like they got to work their way into some kind of like
Or you got to go through all the programs and different
good
things
standing position
beforehand.
to prove
Yeah.
that you're capable of being
Yeah.
in ministry, but like that's not really what Jesus says. It's just like
Yeah.
just follow me, and when
Yep.
you follow me, then you're doing ministry anyway.
Absolutely.
So maybe like if you could give people like some kind of, if there's a group of people or a person who has no experience with committing any crimes or going to
knowing
prison
ex-criminals.
or doesn't have any, just has like no understanding of like what it's like to
Yeah.
be in that kind of a situation or in that lifestyle, like what would you say to those people to help them know how to like perceive people that are seemingly maybe like scary or
Yeah.
have broken the law or are trying to kind of just like find their way after they get out of jail?
Yeah.
Just talk about that for
Yeah.
a minute.
Well, one of the things I always tell our leadership here, you would think, you see me, you see my tattoos. These are old gang tattoos, So anybody that comes to the church, right away they know he's an ex-gangbanger. Look at his tattoos. If they live that life,
Yeah.
they'll be able to tell right away where I was from, where I grew up. They don't even have to ask. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's just a common thing. But majority of the people that come to Living Way, they're Hispanics. But they're hard workers. They're business owners. We have a lot of retired law enforcement here, retired correctional officers. So these are people that would never associate with me in my past life at all, not for a second.
Yeah.
And but now here we are. We're doing ministry together. They're family. I love them. They love me. It's just amazing to see what God's doing. And what I always tell the people here that never lived the life, but we're in the inner city, we're obviously going to be reaching these types of people. I always tell them this: be yourself. Don't try to relate to them and try to talk gang stuff or because they're not into that. They want to be far away from that.
Yeah.
But if they just see that you genuinely care about them, if you just listen, I don't care what gang member it is and what crimes he's committed. Every single one of them will tell you about a teacher who never lived the life they lived or even understand it that impacted their life more than anybody.
Yes.
You want to know why? Because they were no way associated with their life, but they truly cared about them and they knew that. So I always tell people here, they always say, what is the requirement to be in ministry here at Living Way? What books do we got to read? What program do we got to go to? How long do we got to be here? You know, and I tell them this, the only requirement is love. If you love these people, you'll serve them well. That's all you got to do is love them. You'll serve them well. You know, the greatest servants are those who just love, that put others before themselves. And yeah, I mean, of course, we want you to, be here a little bit. First find, is this my church? Is this my pastor kind of thing? But other than that, I mean, there's just so much going. There's ministry 7 days a week in this church.
Yeah.
Man.
When the whole pandemic hit and literally like we had to shut down, we got the news on a Wednesday night. And it was the following Wednesday. And that Wednesday night, we went live online. Then I created a service for Thursday nights. We went live online. Then Friday nights, we went live online. Then Saturdays, we went live online. And then Sundays, all 4 services, we went live online. We were live 7 days a week for 13 weeks.
Dang.
And we rearranged the stage. We had a sofa up here. We had everything all set up. We would do unplugged sessions, worship sessions, Bible teaching. I mean, literally, we just turned into a virtual church.
Yeah.
And, it kept the people encouraged.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as soon as everything started, we opened up in the beginning of May before everybody else did. And people just started coming. And they were like, we were watching you online. God really ministered, And as we were kind of doing that whole, dynamic, now we got this whole new group of people that we're just like, who are these people?
Right.
But we're getting some rough, people. And so I always just tell them, look, at the end of the day, everybody's hurting.
Come on.
Everybody, they come here because to them, this is my last resort church.
Yeah.
They don't want religion. They don't want tradition. They don't want, none of the ceremonialism. They don't want any of that. They just want a real tangible relationship with God. And so I said, just love them. Don't judge them. Don't get, I always say, don't get weird, man. Don't get weird. Just love on them.
Don't get weird.
Yeah. And you know what? It works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
It works.
Yeah, it does.
That's awesome.
I think what I loved when the first time that we were kind of connected here is it was like a crazy Sunday. So we didn't get to meet you like right up front.
Yeah.
I don't think we met you until like the
afterwards.
the third service.
Yeah,
was about to start.
And coming into a place where you don't really know everyone and just different things like that. Everyone apart from you, they were already like right on the front lines, loving.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that I have known, we've discovered with playing in specifically Hispanic churches is that culturally family is the thing.
Yeah.
And
It does. It feels very much more like community oriented than lots of
and the thing about being
other
yourself.
churches.
I know I'm a white girl.
Yeah. Right.
There's nothing. I've got a freaking bow in my hair. There's nothing
that.
that's gonna be able to keep this away from
White
the
girl
truth.
who loves Mexican food.
Yeah.
I just
If
says, I says they're really Mexicans. They're Mexicans trapped in white women's bodies.
I have
I'm
Yes.
just
A
kidding.
better compliment
Hey,
in my
we
entire
went to
life.
get street tacos right outside of a tire shop.
That's how we
the
do
other
it,
night.
man. That's how
It was
we
like
do it.
this late night bumping party.
Oh
There's
my
like
gosh.
music playing on a
Music's
karaoke
going.
Oh my
machine, and
goodness.
these guys
Everyone's
are just like they have like a spit that they're just slicing meat off of.
I cried.
Everybody
it was,
was
so
speaking
good.
in Spanish. I was like, I don't know.
care.
I don't care what I eat. It's probably gonna be good. They give us some
wow.
stuff and they keep saying, don't eat this salsa.
Don't eat that one.
This one is like it's
Don't
super
eat
hot.
that
Don't eat it.
salsa.
So of course I'm like,
Okay.
I
gonna
have
do
to
it.
eat
I'm
it.
gonna
I
do
gotta
it.
eat it. So I like tried a really small amount and I was like, that's pretty spicy. But the flavor was like still
so good.
it was still coming through the spice. If I can taste the flavor of it and it's spicy, then
You're
it's
good.
like
You're good.
it's okay. So finally I just like I put some on my taco and I went up to Pastor David, was like, you see this salsa on this? I'm about to put this in my mouth.
I'm
And
about to do
they
this.
were all like,
Everybody
what?
was,
What?
yeah.
Everybody, they were
the
like,
white
no,
girl's
you're
gonna
not.
eat the salsa. It was amazing. It was great.
Oh,
I loved
wow.
it. 10
That
out
was
of 10
fun.
would do it again.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Like the being yourself.
Yeah.
So incredible.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Like Jesus wasn't anybody else but himself, and he managed to radically change history.
Absolutely.
He just
Yeah.
just in that, and also in him asking his disciples to also be themselves. Matthew didn't suddenly stop, being himself as far as like he stopped his profession as a tax collector, but him as a person, educated and kind of eloquent.
Yeah.
You can see that in the way that he wrote the gospel of Matthew, even
Exactly.
Luke, being this. Jesus didn't ask him to step down and be like less than a doctor. He's writing this way. Yeah, Paul, all of these people. And what's amazing is that God just enhances who you are.
Absolutely.
And he shaves off the pieces that are
Yeah.
unnecessary. It's like he just refines and makes it better. And I think you as a 5-year-old kid standing, you're like, what, Mom? Like, who cares, right? God's just going, no, I see the fire. And I see the strength and I see the longevity of this kid, and we're going to do amazing things, and
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I think something that was interesting that you said too is you never joined a gang. Like it's not like you were like, I'm gonna go sign up for like my
Yeah.
local gang, so that I have community.
Here,
And-
sign here.
But like I think in a lot of ways, like that's everybody's background to some extent is
Come
like
on.
you're just like a part of something that you either super hate and you can't wait to get the heck out, or you're a part of something that you're like, yeah, this makes me feel like I belong and this is how I was raised and this is like normal to me and I'm just
Yeah.
gonna do this. And like it kind of struck me. I was born into just like ministry night and day family.
Yeah.
Like my dad, my mom, my grandpa, my grandma, like my uncle, like just all my extended family, like we all lived close by. And my dad's a pastor. My grandpa was a pastor before him. My great grandfather was the
Wow.
pastor before
Wow,
him.
that's awesome.
My dad did the Ancestry.com thing and found out that like all the way back to like when our ancestors came over from Europe, they were in ministry.
Wow.
It's just like
Amazing.
She was ruined from the start.
yeah, like this
She wasn't gonna
very
get away
long
from it.
history of being in
Yeah.
ministry. But like that comes with its own
Yes.
like things that you grow up just feeling like ministry is like what makes me who I am.
Yeah.
Like this is what makes me belong, and like there's like some religiousness that comes with that, and like the way that your mindset just kind of gets like soaked in that I just want to feel like I matter somewhere.
Come on.
It's like the same being in a gang as it is, like
Your
going to a church
identity-
just because
Yeah.
you feel like that's who
Absolutely.
you are supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And like I the verse that came to my mind is when like Jesus says, "Take my yoke, for my yoke is easy, my burden is
Yeah.
light." And like that, the yoke
Come
of
on.
sin is like it has to be like broken. Like you have to get out of that, and like it doesn't make any difference if you are, a gangbanger or a church kid that
Yeah.
grew up sleeping on
There's
the
a-
pews and after school on Tuesdays.
But there's
your
a-
parents were there.
Yes. There's a
like
reason why.
change.
There's a reason why pastors' kids get a bad rep, though.
Yeah.
Because the identity that is instilled
Yeah.
is so heavy that if that becomes everything that you are, well, it changes everything a little bit. If that becomes everything that you are, though, then that is something that God has to get you out of just as much.
Either
you
way,
know?
you have to choose Jesus, just like your hillbilly brother told you. I'm not going to tell you anymore. You got to choose.
Yeah, you got to choose. You got to choose Jesus. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that for me, I always felt like, my kids, I never put the burden of them that they're pastors' kids.
I love that.
I was just an example. And that's one thing that they always tell people, they're like, my dad never shoved the Bible down our throat. He never said, you have to read the Bible. You have to do this. You have to do that. He just set rules. This is how I'm running my home. And I'm the priest of my home, and I'm going to lead you guys in the Word. I'm going to be an example, and that's what I would do. I wouldn't say, hey, we're having a Bible study. You guys got to have a family Bible study.
Yeah.
No, they saw me studying the Bible. They saw me praying
we didn't have
and
family
reading.
Bible studies
They seen that, and that's one thing they've always appreciated. That's one thing they've always said, and to this day, they always just say, Dad, thank you for being you. You've done more to us by showing us what it is to be a Christian rather than telling us what it is to be a Christian. And that's something that I've always appreciated, always appreciated in my walk, that God at least gave me the wisdom to be that way. I've always, still to this day, I want the best for my kids, but for the most part, it's not easy doing what we do as pastors. And, but that drive, that zeal that I had to go get that dope or to go, let off on somebody from another neighborhood or to go steal and break into a house, that rush, that thrill, all the crimes that I committed and stuff I did to people. I have that same passion and zeal when it comes to teaching the Bible, when it comes to studying the Word, when it comes to ministering, and people will be like, oh, well, our church is over here, but we've never went on that side of the tracks. I'm like, I'll go. Let's go right now. Let's grab some Bibles. Let's go over there. Let's go preach. I'll get a bullhorn right on the corner. I'll start preaching the gospel, man, and somebody comes up for prayer. We'll lay hands on them right there, man. That's just old school. I like that stuff because that's how we live life. How do you confront the inner city? You got to go into the inner city. And their life is rough. Of course it's rough. Of course it's rough. Yeah. They're ill-mannered. They don't know how to talk. They don't know how to act because it's street life.
Yeah.
But you could take the gospel in there, like when Paul says, I become all things to all men, that I might win some. So, you go in the hood, and you just get in there and just love on them and just give them Jesus.
Come on.
And if they see like, man, you're being real.
Come on.
They love that more than anything.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
True.
Well, whenever the women's thing starts up again, call us.
Oh yeah, definitely. You guys can stay there with them.
Okay, that's fine. The only other we've played at a couple jails, or the one jail we played at
in Ketchikan,
Alaska. We did that there,
women's
but
home in New York.
Oh, that's right.
That was really cool.
I love those people though because it's like
they are very real.
It's
no faking it.
No, it's it's so great, and Jesus does such fast miracles. Yeah, right. It's so beautiful. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to land.
Yep.
Because I don't want to keep crying over how wonderful this is.
Yes.
Because you're wonderful and crazy all at the same time, and it's so good.
That's what they say. Thankful.
It's all
Thankful
true.
to the Lord for that.
Okay, well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Matters Over Miles. Thank you, Pastor David.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Oh, are you kidding? So good. This is going to be so good. I'm so excited. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye. God bless you guys.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Matters Over Miles podcast, a resource of Water Within Ministries. If you would like to be a supporter of the show, head over to water-within.com/WWM and click the donate button at the bottom of the page. All donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.